Hi there. I just wanted to give some general overall feedback about your projects. Um, I, first of all, have been working on giving some feedback to each and every one of you. There are, I think, maybe three of you at the bottom of that feed that I have yet to get to, and will be doing that shortly. But with that, I was a little light on positive feedback and a little heavier on suggestions because I thought that that might be what could help you move your project forward the best. But that being said, I do want to make sure and emphasize that everybody has very, very solid starts, unless otherwise noted, and your projects are going to be great with the revisions and the time that you put into finishing up, adding your thoughts in your sections that may have been left out through prior drafts. So please don't take um, suggestions or criticism as being a terrible paper or a terrible draft, but I tried to give what I had time to give so that everybody could have some feedback that could help them. I know when I've turned in projects, I always hate getting a draft back with just a bunch of great jobs when I know full well that there's room for me to improve. So here goes. I've got some feedback. Some things that are absolutely must have. So again, I just said to take my suggestions to some degree with a grain of salt, but if there are suggestions relating to any of these things, you absolutely have to have them in your paper. This should definitely be a discussion of evolutionary, which are our course topics. Um, that means, I guess, if you were talking about conservation or you're talking about some other aspect of an organism, make sure that you're relating it back to the evolutionary topics, at least in the introduction and conclusion, but perhaps throughout each section of your body as well. Um, Adaptations are evolutionary, so if you're talking about adaptations, that's fine. If you're talking about natural selection, that's fine. If you're talking about sexual selection, that's fine, because those are evolutionary topics. But if you are simply talking about body parts with no mention of adaptation or evolution, then that kind of edges more towards anatomy than evolution, and you should bring it back to the fact that those adaptations are evolutionary in nature. Again, at the very least, in the intro and discussion. Um, the synthesis part of this should be 3 to 5 pages. That includes with the infographic and lesson plan. So if your lesson plan is 10 pages long, full of lesson plan things like materials and um, worksheets and presentations and a description of how you're going to teach your lesson, you do need to have that 3 to 5 page synthesis of the evolutionary topics, and it should be pretty formal using APA styling and such. I suppose an exception would be if you plan to publish next semester and you already know your journal is not APA, maybe talk to Phil about that, but um, for our formal assignments, we use APA here. I noticed that in some cases our intros and our conclusions were not necessarily strong, um, lacking things like topic and summary sentences for each paragraph. I know that that can come with a draft, but when it comes to having your finals, those parts do need to be strong. Um, I noticed several cases, and I think some of your peers pointed out, where we need to double check our APA formatting in references, in text citations, things like running head, page numbers, and all of those. I like the Purdue Online Writing Lab. I believe it's linked to in a lot of our Dragonfly materials, or you can just Google it for these things. One thing I've noticed in the past is that Word defaults to 1.25 inches margins on the left and right, and we ask for 1 inch margins. And so you do need to go in and manually change that. I'm also not sure if Google Docs even allows running heads, but I imagine some of you may have used Google simply for the feedback aspect and will be transferring over to Word. When you add photos into the infographics, if they are not taken by you, make sure you're giving credit for those photos. Your infographics very well may be published, and we do need to make sure that we're giving credit where credit is due. Remember, your 10 sources need to be peer reviewed. That's not just any 10 sources. So, magazine, blog posts, textbooks, things like that, that may not be peer reviewed can certainly be cited, but we are asking for 10 peer reviewed sources in total. If you're not sure how to tell if it's peer reviewed or not, our Miami library offers a little icon that pops up, and I think you can see more about it on the left-hand side of that screen to show if it is an academic journal or not. I also believe that in one of the earlier classes in this course, or I'm sorry, in this program, there is a video that somebody has done. If I can find it, I'll link to it in the Shoot the Breeze that reminds you of how to figure that out. You are being asked to do a synthesis, and so we're trying to synthesize the ideas of many into the ideas of you. And I noticed in some drafts we had a lot of paragraphs or sections that were heavily cited by one source, and then another section that are heavily sorted by another source, and so on. Mixing that up and kind of combining all of the ideas that you're finding into a true synthesis will make your paper stronger. I'll also be contacting some of you individually. You are asked to do 2 substantial peer reviews. For some, I was maybe not super clear as to which ones were to be considered your substantial peer reviews. Those are being graded with some degree of weight. I think it's 25 points each. So I may have to contact you to find out who exactly have your substantial reviews. And that's on the reviewer that I'm looking for. So if you didn't get 2 substantial reviews, I I don't need you to contact me. But if you think that it's you that didn't clarify which were substantial and which were just like, I read your paper posts, let me know. Okay? Otherwise I'll contact you. Anyways, thank you. A lot of great drafts, and again, I didn't spend a ton of time on positive feedback because I wanted to get a lot of comments in to see where improvement might be able to take shape between now and your final draft. So if that bummed you out, I'm sorry, and we can talk about what's great if that's what you need to know. Thank you.